Okay, my name is Almena Cornelius, and I'm the manager of the Newcastle Pottery. We have been here now for 38 years, and I've been here for that 38 years. Well, we do a lot of pottery here, which is, let's say, tradition. It's a tradition here on the island of Nevis with many families. But my family has been doing this the longest. And after years of doing it, my family, many of them migrated to other countries, and my grandma and her daughter, one of her daughters, at home were doing it. And after they got down in years, there wasn't anybody doing it. And so I took it up. I was a teacher before in the primary school. And so I resigned and I took up the challenge to do this, seeing that there wasn't anybody else doing it. And so I continue, and I've been here for 38 years. And I've taught many people. Most of them now migrated to other countries and took up their profession in pottery, working at some place where there's pottery. But here on the island, not many people are doing it. At present, it's only my cousin Mareelyn, Dan Perkins, and myself. Yes, so we try to carry it on, and hoping at some point, somewhere along the line, there might be some young people coming to do it. Because being here for these number of years, I won't be here for long. So we just need other young people to carry on the job. 'Cause it's a dying art right now. And I'm still hoping that someone else would come along to do the work.
I am Mareelyn Evelyn. I've been coming to the pottery now for the past 6 years. I've learned to our grandparents. My grandmother was a potter, my mom was a potter, my aunt was a potter. So I've learned about it from, you could say, from birth. I grew up, met them doing it, so I have always had a love for it. And after working for the Nevis Island government for 34 years, I retired, and here I am.
Yeah man, Nevis rise up quick. Yeah, back in those days it was darkness. Yeah, you know. You used to have like moonlight walking when the moon come around and stuff like that. You know. But Nevis has come a long way, to be honest. My great grandmother, you know, she worked hard. She used to till the soil, plant the food, bake the bread, because she had a shop. You know, she had a shop there. You know, we go down to the pottery and stuff like that. You know, because it was close, you know. You have camps, you have Newcastle police station. You know what the Newcastle police station is? So the house on the other side, that's family. And the pottery just be up the road from there. So, you know, we'll go there and, you know, help them light the fires, kids and things. And play with the clay. You know, we play with the clay. You know, you play it up, make a kind of clay man. Cause, you know, we call it dolly house. So we play at a dolly house. We and the little girls, back in the days with the clay and stuff like that. Until we know exactly what clay can do when we get a little older. You know, as you see, I have a little clay pot there that I cook food, and it's one of the sweetest food you can get, you know. It's from the clay pot.
Nevis Pottery been around for a long time, you know. Growing up, go over there in school time, like vacation.
Come to the brother, man. Yeah.
And the ladies like hands-on experience. She just do everything naturally, handmade, create whatever you need. And it's very cheap. It's nothing that expensive like that, you know. But like the taste of the food, you get more quality, natural taste of the herbs, the rice and whatever you may cooking. And it's still longer than the tin though. That's the only thing. You just have to make up your mind to just wait. But the heat, they hold the food a lot more than the regular tin pan. My great grandmother, she used it. She lived 100 and I think it's 5 years. So she live in and she do it the same way. You know, put it on 2 stones, put sticks underneath of it and light it, and then you know you have your clay pot bubbling.
Based on Nevisian history, I see that pottery is very important because it transcends and you can track it back to slavery and our African heritage. And back in the day, slaves, they didn't have much rights, but they used pottery and that type of artwork as a release per se, just so they could have, their own little art forms, and, it was used for communication as well. It was used as signage, it was used for planting and just, storing like different types of items as well. So I'd say that pottery is very important, and preserving it on the island of Nevis is essential because it forms a big part of, I'd say, African history, which is what we're all about.
A lot of the Rasta men, the Rasta tradition, they use coal pots. It's called the Yaba pot, and that is a traditional pot that goes back to Africa. So what Nevis pottery is actually a continuation of African pottery styles that were brought by our ancestors. Okay, yes, the indigenous people who were here were making pottery themselves, so you would find in the museums a lot of pottery chads and so on from that era. But the big pots, Almena and I, you would have met Almena in Nevis. We had the opportunity to go to Belgium to attend biennial ceramics exposition back in, I think, in 2002. And when we were there, we were invited, the ACP countries, which is African, Caribbean, and Pacific, were invited. And so she and I represented St. Kitts. There were people from Jamaica, from Cuba, from Haiti, from Trinidad, from Barbados. We were really happy to be with all these potters, right? And but there were also African potters and people from India and so on. But the African pots she was just amazed because she brought her pots and it was very much similar to what they were making in Africa, right? And Africans, of course, brought thousands of pots. Everybody was just walking off with the pots. But the fact is, we got to see for ourselves and see how much we are connected to our people still, our ancestors, because it's the same tradition. Mm-hmm. And when they did, we had workshops, we had, where they showed slides and so on, and how the African pottery is done, the firing techniques, just like what Nevis does, the big bonfires, and they use cow dung and all sorts of things, put it in it, to help to keep the heat. All of that is done in Africa, is done in Nevis as well. It's a old traditional way. I used to do it. I used to get my palm trees, my dry coconut pieces, build a bonfire in my yard, put all my pieces between it and let it rip. I would go to the beach and do it. Those were the days, in the early days, then after I started doing pottery, yeah.
The pottery industry has always been very important to the St. Kitts and Nevis people. As a kid growing up, I remember my great-grandmother used to cook stew, like pork stew, mutton stew, and in rice inside of, we call them a clay pot as a kid growing up, because it's made from clay, and it helped a lot of the local people in Nevis, their grandparents and great-grandparents, work in that industry to help better their education so they can go abroad and study, become great men and fantastic women. Some people even went on to be doctors and lawyers because of that industry. So I want to see it revive and stay alive, you know, for the benefit of the youths, you know.
I believe the work of Newcastle Pottery is important to Nevis because it is indigenous, it's locally done. I believe the persons doing it are doing the pottery in the way they were taught from previous generations, by previous generations. And so it retains an authenticity to the way the work is being done in Nevis. And that makes it important. It can be copied, it can be, they can choose to copy other styles, they can choose to make their work look the way other people's pottery looks, but they deliberately hold fast and choose not to do that. And I think that's important. A time when I've used pottery in a joyous way or an experience learning about the pottery when I've visited the studio. I enjoy going there. I remember when I first started to see the work, the little churches that they did, the little houses, sometimes there would even be little animals, pigs and goats. I thought that was, nice to see those things recreated, because they take time to do. It's not, you don't just whip it up. And so it's nice to see, especially they also did some of the important buildings in the Newcastle area that may have gone by the wayside as well. And it was from them, it was from the pottery I learned that Anglican churches, their floor plans are the sign of the cross, right? It's from them I learned that, because when you hold up the church that they have done, you see the sign of the cross recreated. So it was from the pottery I learned that.
The pottery has been through a lot of transitions. I don't think personally that it gets enough attention, but that is going to change, I think, in the near future. I think people are recognizing the importance. They're recognizing that there isn't another pottery in down, especially on that level, that makes those kind of things. Without that, Nevis would be at a terrible loss. So I think it's one of the most valuable assets we have as it pertains to tourism. It's one of the most valuable assets we have as it pertains to our history. And it's something that we have to continue, or you will talk about it from a picture, not from the reality. It's almost like music. You will hear some music somewhere and you'll say, your mother or grandmother will say, but they stopped making the instruments, nobody bothered to learn how to play some of them. So you'll see them hanging in a museum, but nobody knows how to play them, so you only talk about it. Or somebody have to play the music from the 1920s or 40s for you to actually hear what this instrument sounds like. I think history is something that reminds us of the mistakes that we made to make it better going forward. So I feel sometimes that we're not learning. I really do. I feel that sometimes we leave things to deteriorate to the point where of no return. Then we try our best to duplicate it. But it's not real, because that's not how it was supposed to be. We never bothered to get the real facts. And that's important.
When I was doing art class in school, I used to work with clay, mostly air dry clays. I'm not good at it, so I didn't want to take up pottery at all, which I kind of feel bad about it now, because I realize, now a lot of people want to do it either, so it's a missed opportunity for me. And if I were to go back, I probably would just do it just so I can have some kind of experience with it, so I can carry it on to someone else who might be more interested than me. But I never really incorporate much in my art, which is pretty sad. But if anything, there are chances for maybe a collaboration. I could have a design, have them make it for me, and then we probably have something going. So you could say there's still ideas running around for that to happen.
It's better. It's 100% better. It'd be better to pay attention, because You don't have to import anything. You don't have to import your pot. You don't have to import your drinking cup or anything. You can make it right here. You know, and as I said, the calabash as well. That is part of it. You know, you have the clay, you have the calabash. So if the youths them get, but hey man, it's hard to reverse the hands of time, you know. You can't tell the youths them about clay, you know, because we didn't show them that way from the early days. Something to continue. And that's what's going on in Nevis, where the older generation hide a lot of things from us. And they bring this foreign style of life to us. We send our kids to study in foreign country. When they come back here, they bring that foreign policy. They watch TV, this is what they see on TV they want. Oh, I don't want to drink out of that. And they don't understand the value of a clay. They need to understand the value of your own stuff. Until we get a disaster and we have to go down to come back up again, then they will understand the meaning of these things. Otherwise than that, those stores uptown that have those pots, those shine-looking pots and those shine-looking plates and the freezer that have in all American food, that look better to them than to pick some food out of your backyard. And that's, you know, so it's hard to reverse the hand of time until we get destroyed by something. Then they're going to know how important the calabash is and how important the clay is. And you don't want that. We don't want to go to that. I think every household in Nevis should have a piece of clay in it. That's how I see it. Have a clay pot. I've been working with clay for years. I never out of a clay pot. If my clay broken, I go and I have to have something clay around me. I have to have something calabash around me, something culture. I have to keep my culture. I have to keep my stuff that I know I grow with. Because these are what the old ancestors used to use before those pots used to come in on the boats and those things. We used to make our own pots, our own bowls and stuff like that. We had no shine looking pot coming in and no plane from nowhere. We had to use those same calabash to make cups and stuff like that. And then when the milk cans them started coming, when the milk started coming in a certain pan, the cheese pan, they started to change there. We just started to use the milk can as cups. They use the cheese pan, the little cheese pan as cups. Like guys who walking on the road, fixing the road. That's their cups. Because me as a kid growing up, I watching the elder guys what they're using before we could get a proper cup. Yeah, they was drinking out of milk cans. Yeah, after they open it for the milk, they turn that into a cup. And they turn the cheese pan into and stuff like that. So it's very important. And they should take it to the school. They should take clay to all the schools. They're going to take in music. Because they take music, the steel pan, you know, they try to keep the youths them in that. But the clay is a big thing that they need to pay attention to. And I never remember they pushed the clay into the school. They push us at the Branancy story, the cow jump off the moon and stuff. And they need to push that clay, push it into the school so the youths them could understand what life is all about. And they can prepare themselves in case that they're ready to eat out of this, ready to drink out of it and stuff like that. Yeah, so the government need to push that little more.
Honestly, if I were to be very honest with myself, us young people, we really do lose interest in what our parents had going for them, because either, it's not fitting the time anymore, or they force it on us at a young age and now we just don't want to anymore. But for me, it's like once we're given the choice, maybe we can keep on doing it. Once we're given the choice, instead of forcing it on our kids. So right now, I guess I'll just see how it goes. If it's in the schools right now, hopefully they will, keep liking it until they reach to high school. Because I remember when we're doing heritage classes in high school, they had to stop when we reached to third form. And then after that, they just don't do it because they will mostly focus on just basically schoolwork and all that. So they don't have any time for it, which is pretty sad. Because as they say, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And I was dull indeed, because I feel like I lost piece of something because I didn't have fun in school after that.
So the point that I want to make is that everywhere that we We promote tourism, and one of your questions was how can tourists help places like the pottery? But it's ironic because maybe it's because of the size of our population, but crafters compete with hotel work. If you can think about it, hotel work is steady, it's sure, you're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. When you make a craft, you're not sure it's going to get sold, you're not sure the price that they're going to want to pay for it. You know, you would have put in a lot of time, and you know, if you even use the rate that you're being paid at the hotel to price your work, you're still not sure that you're going to get that for the work, you know, and so it places us in a kind of a double bind because we're putting, as governments, we put a lot of money and a lot of advertising efforts into tourism, but then when those tourists come, we might even sell them something that's imported as opposed to something that's locally made. And or the other side of it is that the people who are providing locally made to you as a tourist can't afford to live doing this.
Nevis depends a lot on tourism, almost 80-90%, because agriculture is just now being revived to some degree. But I feel that if we stop looking at names, for example, like agriculture is historical too, because you have to cook in the same pots. So if we find a way to merge everything that we have, you'll get more benefit from the pottery and everything else, because people just see them empty. As empty, there's no need for it. But if you actually start to use these things, you'll see there's more of a need for it than anything else. Some people use them for plants. They use them for lighting. They use and there's so many more benefits from the pottery, because you could make clay tiles. It's just that we haven't expanded the pottery. You know, the pottery itself is it's a walking gold mine. It's gold. Clay is gold. So you're sitting on a gold mine, and it's a place that a lot more can be done. I feel a lot more can be done, and I could see that happening from the Ministry of Tourism recently did some work there, for which I'm a part of, and I applaud that, because it's something that I've been making fuss for all the time, and I'm happy that persons are paying more and more attention. I think they wanted to do little camps and classes so that the art form and the education can be passed on, and that is important, because when these ladies are gone, I don't know what will happen to the shop. The pottery itself, I wouldn't want to see it die, but if there's anyone trained to carry it on, we would lose a big part of our heritage. And that's the thing with most countries. When you lose your tradition and your heritage and your practices, community to me begins to fail, because everything comes from community, and that's where the foundation of most of these things lie, in community. And that's one of the biggest drawbacks of lack of participation, you know. So, you know, I wish as an individual I could invest in it, and not just for the money. It's not having to do with money, it has to do with longevity. You know, I really wish I could save it single-handedly, and I wish more people would see the value and not look for returns, because the returns is love, you know. I wish they would just put something to make sure it's done, make it actually a part of maybe our education system, have the schools because not everybody go to school wants to be a dentist or a lawyer or a doctor. Somebody might want to be an architect, some people might want to be an archaeologist. There are persons with different ideas. There's some persons that would just simply want to save our traditions and our history and our culture. Those are jobs, and those are the important part of making sure that the base of all countries and the foundation of all countries are sound, because I believe that comes from our traditions and our cultures. If you don't have that, say you're grow up in a household, but no matter if you're black, if you're Jewish, if you're Chinese, what really make you stand out is your culture, your tradition. Some people stray from it, but they end up coming back because they realize that is the foundation of who you are, the stories, your grandparents, the things they told you, great-grandparents, the way they did things, and the reason why. So if you become a chef, most of the little techniques and secrets you have came from your mom or your grandparents, because you remember a taste, but you just can't find it in the shop. So when you try to duplicate these things, you have to still go back to Granny and Papa and Mama, and you say, Mom, and she'll say, how you put too much in the thing, So these are the things we must preserve. These things are very, very important. When I did the shoot for them over there, I remember sitting and just looking at this woman, very slender woman, slim, beautiful lady, unassuming, because you'd expect that her arms would be big. But here's this slim lady, and she created a pot like this huge. Now if I tried to do that, that pot would not leave the ground, it would fall down. But she started from the base all the way up, and that sold me because that's foundation. So it depends on how you start. The middle is the balance, so she created the balance so that it doesn't fall. So it was almost like rings upon rings upon rings upon rings upon rings until it got to the top where there was another ring. But you're not seeing the frame or the skeleton. All you're seeing is a pot. And that's life, isn't it? So when you look at what she just created, because if you're not there to see it done, you think it's easy. But she had to create a whole skeleton, just like our body, and then wrap a skin around it. Leave it, put it in this tremendous amount of heat for it to bake. That makes it hard. So when she's finished with that and you're cooking that, everything makes sense, because the amount of heat that pots generate changes the texture and the quality and the taste of the food. That's what makes this so different. So now you come to this island and I could offer you some food from this pot. That's an experience. It's something you go away with. If I go to, say, Croatia, if I go to, say, Germany, if I go to, say, Africa, Morocco, no matter where you go, and you taste anything local, the memory stays with you, because it's tradition, isn't it? It's tradition.
The journey has been very long, tiring, but yet interesting. Because having been here for 41 years, it's like been here forever. And I think it's time now for me to hand this over to someone else. But who? I don't know. Just hoping that there would be someone to carry this on. The pots here, the pottery, and what we are doing are very unique. It's far different to what some people are doing. And if this is to go on, it will have to be like from young people, very young, to take this up and to carry it up. But we're not seeing this. This is not happening. No matter how we try, it's not working. As you can see, there are only 2 of us here working, and still hoping that we would get younger people or other people to do this craft.
In terms of the pottery being carried on, the work at the pottery being carried on, I think it's important because it is one of the oldest tradition on the island, you know. And to see something like this, it came from our, I have to say, ancestors, and it's dying because no one wants to learn. I think the problem is they will come, they like to feel the clay in their hands, they like to see that they make something, but in terms of taking it through to the finished product where you have to go out in the sun and fire them, they are not into that. And as I said before, young people, they are not interested because it is not financially stable. My vision is to get some persons to come in and learn. Get the government involved and get a group of young persons to come in, learn the craft and stay to do it. Get them on a program, where they can get a salary so that they can tell themselves, well, every week I can go home with something. Not like us, if you don't get a piece sold, there's no way you can have a salary. So the vision I have for this place is to get the government on board and get some young persons to learn the craft. Then you can see the pottery is going to go places. But the way it is now, it is just stagnant, and I don't see a way forward from it right now, as is. The only other thing, well, growing up, I would hear Almena and my grandparents saying the trip that they took to go over to St. Kitts to the marketplace, and sometimes they have to take the pots on their heads. The boat was small, crowded, and you go to St. Kitts and it's not like you will get the stuff sold one day, so sometimes they have to overnight, not in very good condition, but seeing it was their only job, they went through it. And in their own way they came out and were satisfied. And at the end of the day, if you have that sense of satisfaction, you'll be happy. But I would only wish that some other persons will come on board. As you can see, Almena and I, we are getting older. We are getting older, and how much longer can we be here? You know? So it needs people to come on board and carry on the tradition, because I wouldn't want one day to be passing along the road and the doors are closed, you know? And you can say, I used to be there. I used to have stuff here to sell to the tourists when they come in. And the tourists, they are more interested in the craft than the locals. To learn it, you know, they are more interested in learning the art than the locals. I don't know if it's because they are just visitors and it's not a job for them, why they are that interested, but seeing it as a job for the locals, there isn't that interest. So, but I would like to see the tradition die. I would really like to see it go on. Both of us can sit down when I want to take with our great grandchildren and say, we used to work at the pottery, but thanks to God, somebody else is taking